This is Middle East Brief with Avi Kaner, your daily intelligence update on what actually matters.
Today's story begins with a Jewish-owned house in Baghdad, Iraq. A house France originally rented from the Lawee family over 50 years ago, and still occupies today as its embassy. Not by paying the family, but by paying the Iraqi government that seized it. That one house represents an entire world, and this was no ordinary house. Beit Lawee was one of Baghdad's grand residences. Built in 1937 in the prestigious Al-Alwiya district, one of the city's most elegant neighborhoods. It stood on expansive grounds lined with gardens and trees. A large villa in a European-inspired style, with high ceilings, formal reception rooms, broad staircases, and spacious courtyards designed for entertaining and family life. It was a kind of home that reflected status, success, and permanence. A statement that the family belonged to Baghdad and expected to remain there for generations. So who were the Lawees? They were not outsiders. They were Baghdadis, part of a thriving Jewish community that helped build modern Iraq. The Lawee brothers, Ezra and Kaduri, were successful businessmen who held major commercial interests, including American automobile concessions. In the 1930s, they built this grand family residence known as Beit Lawee. And they were not alone. For centuries, Iraq was one of the great centers of Jewish civilization. It was the land of ancient Babylon, the home of the Babylonian Talmud. Before the mass exodus, roughly 135,000 Jews lived in Iraq. Jews were central to Baghdad's commercial, civic, and cultural life. Jewish life in Iraq was rich and deeply rooted. Synagogues, schools, newspapers, merchants, bankers, civil servants, musicians, professionals, they were woven into the fabric of the country. Then came the turning point, the Farhud. In June 1941, anti-Jewish violence erupted in Baghdad after a failed pro-Nazi coup. For 2 days, mobs attacked Jewish neighborhoods. Homes were looted, businesses were destroyed, women were assaulted, families were terrorized. Jews were beaten and murdered in the streets. Hundreds were killed or wounded, and the psychological damage was even greater. For many Iraqi Jews, the Farhud shattered something fundamental, the belief that they were secure in the country they had called home for thousands of years. Confidence collapsed, trust collapsed, and although many stayed for another decade, the future had changed. In the years that followed came arrests, denaturalization, expulsion, and seizures of Jewish assets. Between 1950 and 1952, nearly the entire community left. And that brings us back to the house. Beit Lawee was not inherited, it was taken. After the 1967 war, Iraq's regime moved against the last Jews still in the country, seizing their assets and transferring homes like Beit Lawee to the state. Saddam Hussein later cemented that system. What was lost in Iraq was not just property, it was ancient community, a vast network of businesses, homes, institutions, and family wealth. Exact totals are impossible to calculate, but estimates of confiscated and abandoned Jewish assets from Iraq alone run into many billions of dollars in today's value. And yet, more than 50 years later, France still shamefully occupies Beit Lawee. To this day, rent is paid to the Iraqi government instead of the family that owns it. And to this day, the Iraqi government has never made restitution for the assets seized from its Jewish community. No return, no compensation, no justice.
This is Middle East Brief with Avi Kaner. If you want clarity, not noise, follow and share. Continue the conversation on X at Avi Kaner. Back tomorrow